Okay, I will go ahead and record that you are calling the meeting to order. It's 3:01. Roll call. Tim Watkins.
Here.
Linda Humphrey. Oh, this may be Linda joining us right now.
I'm not on my computer, but I'm on my phone.
That is okay.
Okay.
And Vance, we may be getting a little bit of feedback from you because it looks like you're on there twice.
Well, I'm on the phone and I'm also on the computer.
Well, and I think we're getting a little bit of a feedback loop. So if you'll mute one of them.
Okay, I'm going to delete the computer.
Okay. Jack Cardwell.
I cannot see you.
That's fine. Jack Cardwell.
Yes, I'm sorry. My IT skills I'm the dinosaur of everything, so I lost y'all.
It's okay. Cindy Marshall.
Oh, here.
Vance Spearman.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Watkins, all members are present. You are, okay. The next on our agenda is approval of the minutes.
Yes, has anybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes, I did. They were sent recently.
Right. I looked at it. It was pretty short, wasn't it? The one I read.
It was a short meeting and there were short minutes.
Okay, short minutes and right. I saw that. I read that.
Okay, well, I did not receive the minutes from the last meeting, so if at least 3 of you have, we can vote to approve.
So move.
Vance will second it.
Okay,
I can't
got a
second.
motion.
I wasn't there.
It's okay. Vance seconded. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Did we get 3 affirmative on that?
You did, or at least the 3 lit up on my screen.
Okay.
The next on the agenda is legislation recommendations.
Okay. Do we have anything working there?
I'm aware of items at the state level. I'm not aware of anything on the local level. I don't know if anyone else is.
Okay. What have you heard anything on the state? What's going on at the state? Where we're at?
I haven't heard anything past that. The House and the Senate had bills introduced to ban breed-specific, legislation at municipal levels. So that's the only one I've heard of, but I haven't heard any movement on it.
Okay.
So they have introduced the bills, but they just haven't acted on them yet. That was.
Well, I'm quite sure there's going to be, if there is any movement this year, it will be slow due to the circumstances they've been dealing with down there.
And Deb C's just joined us with the county. Deb, we are discussing legislation recommendations and that bills have been introduced at state level.
Okay.
Have you heard anything, Deb, about anything going on down at Jeff?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
My life's been COVID.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can understand that. Let's see. Well, so perhaps we need to kind of move on since nobody seems to have any kind of handle on what's going on where we're at exactly down there in Jeff City on this issue.
The next issue is program funding. And I sent a report for the first, the city's first 2 quarters, which is July through the end of December.
Yeah, did everybody get an opportunity to look that over?
I'm having a little difficulty. So how much has Prop P brought in? And
Prop P has brought in actually a lot of money. Now the city had, the way the ordinance was written, the shelters portion is capped out at the 750,000. So it went 50-50 with police and with the shelter until it reaches 1.5 million. And then after that, it would fund just police until they get up to 30 officers. And then it waterfalls over into the other sales tax brackets at the same ratio that they're collected normally. So that 750,000 has been collected for the shelter, and we will get no more money from it during this fiscal year because we've reached our max.
You know,
The exact
Christina,
amount I would
when
have
we
to
were
look up.
working, when
Yep.
we were working on that, I don't think that was what we were actually led to believe.
This was
When Linda Pringle and I, you know, we would be out talking to people, and people were very, you know, a lot of people didn't believe what we were saying, and at that point we were telling them that with the use tax, that the use tax would come in, and the police and the shelter each would share that money, and it'd be split equally for the 2 things. There was never all the other things that went around of a top on it. At least we were not told that. I don't think any of the workers.
Well, and it was a motion that was made by by the city council, and I can't remember which city council member made the motion, but I mean, it was carried and approved by the majority of the council to have that.
Was it after the fact?
No, because it was written, the actual ordinance, the ballot language that appeared does say it. It also talks, so it was in there for at least by the end of the May or June meeting. I don't remember. You'll have to forgive me. I'd have to go back and look and see exactly when it was voted on to be put on the ballot. But that ballot language did include it. So I don't know if it was highly publicized, but it was most definitely discussed and voted on. And that was the ballot language.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's sort of a shame.
how much did he bring in together for those 6 months?
No, I'm sorry. What was the question?
How much did Prop P bring in for those 6 months, July through December?
I would have to look at reports to find out the exact amount because selfishly, I'm only concerned about mostly the part that comes into our department.
Yeah.
However, my understanding, I believe the number is over $3 million during those 6 months.
I would guess it would be a huge amount with people ordering online.
Yes. So I'd have to go and I'd have to poll to find an exact number, but it's over $3 million. Zach periodically gives a report to the council that has that exact number. I only see the portion that comes to my department. So until it, goes publicly to the council, I don't know that number.
So
yeah,
the shelter will be getting up to $750,000 from Prop P. And since the city was already kicking in X amount of dollars, is the city still kicking in X amount of dollars in addition to the $750,000? Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah. No, it makes sense. this
Okay,
last
so
year,
Yeah.
Originally, the city was putting in, what, 500 and some thousand?
yes,
Is that
it
right?
was, yeah, it was over 500,000. What happened this last year with the budget, which was all voted on back in May, June, is that the city moved the animal shelter and Parks and Rec totally out of the general fund, which is what had been funding animal services. It got totally moved out, and they got moved to, we now have two different funds. We have essentially the Prop P fund, which if you look at your information, it's everything that's 4710 is that Prop P fund. And then everything that's 4705 is the Recreation Health Levy Fund. There's a small amount, a little over $2 million that's collected by the county on property taxes for funding recreation and health. So recreation side, Parks and Rec gets the bulk of that money. And then the Recreation Health Fund, which you'll see down at the bottom, brought in about $873,000 that went to the shelter side. So that is how we're funded. We're funded by Prop P and we're funded by the Recreation Health Fund, and then any other revenue that we can bring in. But we don't get money out of the general fund anymore. But they just they moved us. It's a different way. The city's still providing money. It's just not from the same pot of money, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I am confused. So the shelter will get 750,000 from Prop P, and then how much do they get from this other fund?
Recreation Health Fund, well, that's going to vary based on property taxes. For this year, that brought in 873,000.
But that is, the 873 does not all go to the shelter, correct?
No, yes, it does. There's over $2 million total. The shelter portion is the 800,000.
So the shelter gets the 873 plus the 750?
Correct.
Is that right? Oh, okay. Okay. That's a lot of money.
It is. Yeah.
Do we get anything from the county?
Huh?
Did we get anything from the county?
We did get money from the county as the county held up their end of the contract and did pay for the portions that they had promised to. The county makes good on their debts.
Good.
And that was how much money last year?
That was 100,000.
But the county also pays
You pay the debt service on the building.
Debt service on the
Yes.
building, yes.
So what's happening with, at one time, the county was going to be purchasing the land. So what happened? Has that just been tabled, or is that still in the works?
I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of things in the works right now, and there's a lot of discussions. There's renegotiations. I can't tell you for sure how that's going to pan out, and I don't think Deb could either. Yeah,
No,
it's negotiation time, so that's going to be up to the lawyers and people way above our pay grade.
Okay.
Hey, Christine.
Any other discussion on this?
Hey, this is Vance. I'm curious about something on the budget. In the 4 columns on the first page, you have it says original, I think, appropriation maybe, and
Yes.
revised budget.
Yes.
Revised budget. Usually means something's going to change. There's not a single dollar amount changed in that. Why haven't revised if you didn't change one thing?
Because that's how it's printed out, and occasionally it does happen. There were some revisions done this last month for certain departments in regards to CARES Act funding and different COVID issues. There is always a chance that that funding will have to change. Whether, you know, money has to be moved around in the budget from department to department. If some, you know, if we're looking at the top portion, if we're looking at Recreation Health Fund, if some money needed to be appropriated out of the shelter and moved over to parks, that's always a possibility. And that's where that would be revised and shown. Right now, we have not had any changes. We try to stay steady, and hopefully it will work.
So, one other curious question. Salaries on the 4705 number, and you have salaries on 4710.
Yes.
What's the difference?
So 4705 primarily, because it's the Recreation Health Fund, those salaries are primarily the salaries of myself, because I'm also acting health director, and they fund animal control and their group, because they do rabies quarantines and those sorts of enforcement, which are health related. 4710, because it's for running the shelter by ordinance, those salaries are those shelter staff salaries. So you're looking at those canine animal care techs, the vet staff, those sorts of people. So that's why it's divided up.
Thank you.
How many staff do they have at the shelter now?
How many spots do they have? You mean how many staff?
Staff, yes.
Oh gosh, you would ask me the most complicated, hard question for me. And I should know this because we're working on budget right now. There's just shy of 20 shelter staff. And then if you're looking at, I'm looking at FTEs. So we're right around those, just shy of the 20 shelter staff and about 5 animal control staff. We're actually in the process of hiring one person right now, and we just received approval today for me to make that job offer. And as soon as I get off of this conference call, that's the phone call I plan on making. So.
And what kind of a position is that for?
It's going to be for an animal care tech.
So that would be canine care or feline care?
Yeah.
Okay.
Will that bring you up to 100%?
No, because we had one person who wanted to go part-time. And so we have that little part, and then we have, we have to make some decisions on this coming year about exactly how we're gonna move some stuff around. So right now we're kind of holding off on filling some of the other positions just to ensure that we have our table of organization exactly how we want it and that it's going to balance in the budget, which is always fun. So we might be moving some stuff around. So I don't want to necessarily fill a position that I'll want to move someplace else in the next second.
So how many animal care staff do you have right now?
I take it you mean minus the one that we're looking to hire?
Yeah.
7.5. Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong. 7.5, yeah. And so this other person will make 8.5.
And then, so that's canine and feline?
Yes.
And then how about in the vet clinic?
In the vet clinic, we have our vet and we have 2.5 vet techs.
And then how about admissions?
We have 1.5 right now.
Are people able to come into the shelter now, or are they?
No, what we're doing is we're having everything appointment based.
Okay.
If there's meet and greets, we try to do virtual meet and greets first. If there's, if somebody that goes well, I guess you could say, and they want to meet one of our dogs like Angel, then we'll arrange for them to meet the animal out in the yard. Go ahead and make sure that we have masking in place and social distancing, but give them a chance to meet the animals and take time. We're trying to, limit that a little bit this week because it's just so cold.
Right.
But yeah.
Now, let me ask you, I haven't been able to volunteer, but are volunteers, are you having any volunteers, or are they, can they not come in now, or?
Well, they're not being allowed necessarily inside the building, but we are still absolutely allowing volunteers to come, and they can walk animals around the building. They can furlough the animals. We have volunteers that are taking cats out to PetSmart. They did that this last weekend, and that went really well. We got some adoptions out of that. There's a ton of opportunities, and I know Tanya has been emailing them every opportunity that they have to come in, and, get some hours in. Of course, there's always fostering, and it's going to be kitten season again before we know it.
Right.
So tons of fostering opportunities always.
Yeah.
Anything else on this issue?
Chairman,
Yes.
I should know this, but isn't the city on a fiscal year, not a calendar year on budgeting? Is that right? Or
Yes,
wrong?
it is.
Fiscal year? Okay.
Yes.
That's just a question I wanted to get clear in my mind. That's all.
Okay. What's the next issue that we need to deal with on the agenda?
Animal control
Christina?
numbers is next on the agenda. So I don't know if
Okay.
you have any questions.
Sure. On the animal report you gave for the monthly report for 2020, there's an item, intake division, found dog reports. And it didn't start until June. I guess it's because of this physical year, but nothing talked about for last year.
Yeah, we just hadn't been, I guess you could say, tracking them in that manner before. So we decided to try to do a new way of tracking. And so that's why it doesn't appear until partway through, because that's when we decided to start trying to track them.
Okay.
And keep track of all those numbers. That's all.
Okay. Then my concern, of course, is you've got found dog reports, but you don't have any found cat reports. That's odd.
We can definitely start doing those in. The honest answer is, of course, from the way that we handle stray cats, if they're healthy strays, they're not being brought in. We go ahead and scan them. I guess we can start adding them to a report and figure out a way. I'm looking at Jennifer. She's
nodding her head no.
She says she loves the idea. I've read her mind.
We don't is because we know that the cats are very rarely reunited if they're brought into the shelter or something like that. So we encourage the finder to post found cats on their on the Facebook pages and things like that, and we put them on a list and we call them when we are able to take them into the shelter, as opposed to the dogs where there is much more opportunity to reunite. So tracking the dogs was the stat that we wanted to see how many were actually returned.
And of course, I'm disappointed in that approach to it. I think if my cat got out and in my neighborhood and no one turned it in, I'd be coming to the shelter. This is the first place I would come to see if my cat had been turned into the shelter. And I can qualify that that's the way it was 30 years ago.
We are not disagreeing with you, but you and I both know also that we have a lot of people who we have, those 15,000 strays approximately in Independence. that, we don't have room for. So if they're healthy, we're going to try to make sure that they make their own way back home. We also admittedly have a lot of people who bring in animals and will say, they know it's their neighbor's cat. They just don't want the neighbor's cat on their property. Yeah.
So how do you not have room for these animals when you've got maybe 20 cats at the shelter and less than 50 dogs at the shelter right now?
Well, we do have manageable numbers right now. We absolutely do. And our point is not to necessarily, we don't want to turn away a dog or an injured cat. We want to make sure that we continue having room. If we were to accept every single animal that came to the shelter, we would be quickly overwhelmed, which is what Great Plains saw just a few years ago, which is why the policies changed. I can
remember a time when Great Plains had 170 dogs in the shelter and they still didn't turn animals away. And now you've got less than 50? And you're turning people away and telling them that you're full?
We're not telling people that we're full or turning them away.
That's what I'm hearing is they told us the shelter's full. That's what people are telling me.
Well, again, I wish you would, if you have their names and you're willing to send them to me, we're absolutely willing to look into every single one. But I have never told anyone that we're full. I don't believe Jennifer has, and our intake staff are not trained to see those things. They're trained to schedule people to come in. And if it's an emergency and they show up, we deal with them right then. I can tell you, if you'll look at our page, the number of intakes, strays that we had just strictly this last week. I mean, we obviously weren't turning people away from the number of dogs that came in.
Well, that's this last week. That's not been normal.
Can I make another?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Van.
I was going to make just a comment about cats, which, as you know, I have an interest in, and you do have a little section about the TNR, and I appreciate the information you put on that, the number of cats that you handled, and the services that you offer, which, to my best recollection, you've increased the services. Before, when I was bringing cats in, my impression was, other than an injured cat or something like that, when the cat came in, we paid our $20 and you did a surgery and you gave them a rabies shot. But now I know that you're also giving them a distemper shot, or a shot that includes distemper and a deworming shot. And that's good news for the people that I'm helping with their cats. We appreciate that.
I'm glad. We have loved the TNR program, and I know our vet staff have loved it. Dr. Walker has gotten excited, I think, every single time that she's put out her numbers for how many they've been able to do. And we, of course, had some times where, due to staffing, we weren't able to do the TNR that week. And that was upsetting to us, but we're happy that we're back at staffing where we can and working our way through it. So I'm glad. And hopefully we'll be able to do a lot more of that this year.
Good. Thank you.
What's the policy if somebody sees an injured animal, or I guess an injured dog, after hours? Do you still send an animal control person out to get that animal?
We do. I mean, they have to, of course, report it to us so that we know about it. I mean, I know we've been working and communicating with dispatch to make sure they're aware of the new policy, and we've sent stuff over. What we prefer, of course, if it's way after hours, and Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, but if, we can get a hold of the finder or whoever it is, if they can transport directly to Blue Pearl, in all honesty, that saves everybody a ton of time. It still goes on the city's contract. I know there's been confusion at Blue Pearl because some people have said that, essentially like the regional animal shelter sent me, and they don't have regional animal shelter listed as the contractor or contractee. But yeah, no, we have it set up and we call and authorize it, and get it taken care of. If they need us to transport the animal, we can. It's just logistically, it takes longer for our animal services officer to get back to the shelter, get the truck, and get to wherever they need to be.
Okay. So that's been communicated to dispatch?
Yes, it has.
Okay, because I've heard about an incident where a citizen called in to dispatch and animal control wouldn't come out, and they sent a police officer out, and the police officer shot the dog to put it out of its misery, and then left the dog there. So you can see why people were upset.
Well, and I have heard I've heard a bit about that story, but I have not heard the whole story. Our understanding was that the animal was injured and that it was in the officer believed that the animal wasn't going to make it and it was in a lot of pain, and made the call. It's unfortunate. There are times when, in all honesty, we all know that the animal's not going to make it. When it's just secondhand, third-hand information, it's hard to know exactly. But yes, there's a written policy, and we have spoken to dispatch many times. They know the numbers to get a hold of our staff, and if they can't get a hold of our staff, they have my cell phone and they wake me up, and then I get a hold of our staff. One way or the other, yes, we're coming.
Can I ask you a question about animal services now?
Of course.
Okay. On one of the sheets, which it's titled Animal Services, and you got to give me a second to let my dog out of the room.
I had to do that.
It was dinner time for the dog, and we had to let him out. Okay. Under animal services, there's two things I wanted to question. One, at the bottom of the sheet, it's Operation Litterless Program. I'm sorry, I don't remember a conversation about this before. I need a reminder.
Operation Litterless is for owned animals. It's to provide vouchers to go to specific animal hospitals throughout our area and have their animals spayed or neutered for either a reduced cost or free, depending on what level of assistance they need. Unfortunately, we're going to keep trying. Due to COVID, our vets are a little overwhelmed and a little leery to be taking on additional work. So we have had no takers the past 2 times that we've put out a request. So we are going to keep trying to find some partners who are willing to do this. If you guys know people that you can try to convince to participate in this program with us, what it is they agree on a certain amount, a cost for, a spay or a neuter for a dog or a cat. And then the city keeps track of the vouchers. They issue a voucher to a person, they take it to that animal hospital, and then we pay for that spay or neuter. It's
I have a person that I'm helping this particular week. I'm bringing cats into the shelter for TNR, and she does not impress me with the amount of money she has. How would she qualify for this program?
Well, Operation Litterless is just for owned animals. So if these are TNR cats, then you need to connect with Jennifer afterwards, and we can see what we can work out.
Okay, but it doesn't qualify for a TNR. TNR doesn't qualify for that particular program.
No. That's going to cost a lot more. I mean, in all honesty, it costs more for us to send animals to private vets than it does for us to do it in-house. However, we have an agreement with our vets that not going to take business from them for those owned animals. They're fine with TNR, but for those owned animals, that's their business, and we don't want to undercut the market just because, we're able to do it, cheaper or subsidized by city, citizen taxes. So that would be something for TNR, you need to talk to Jennifer or me afterwards, and we can figure something out.
Okay, well, so far she's not complaining about anything. I just feel like she might be able to use some help, but I'm not going to pursue it at this point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Christina, what you're saying is then the vets want the private person to bring with the voucher into them. But at this point with COVID, they're not taking the people. So why not notify them while COVID is going on? The shelter then would go on and do the spay and neuter. I mean, the veterinarians want to do it, but with this, they're sort of refusing. And I know Independence Animal, you don't even go in now with your animal. It's an outside type thing. They come out to the car, take the animal in, bring the animal back. So, and then the hours, I think some of them are reducing. So why not, I would think if they're saying no, they don't want that type of business right now, how could they object if the shelter then would do it? That way the animal would get spayed and neutered before the breeding season,
Agreed, and I can definitely reach out and ask them if they'd be okay with that course.
I can't see why they wouldn't if they're, since they're refusing, that's...
Now, to be fair, in their defense, they're not refusing. They're just not replying to our requests to partner with us. They're just not talking about it. So they're not outright refusing, but our feedback has been that they're overwhelmed and,
So if the person called and said, I have a voucher, can I bring my animal in? They're not taking it in now.
Well, we're not issuing any vouchers at this time because we don't have a contract with any of the vets to do it. And that's our problem is we need to have those contracts. And right now we're not getting any responses for those contracts. So we're not issuing any vouchers because we don't have anywhere to send those people.
Well, maybe that's something that the committee maybe needs to make a decision on, and then it won't be your problem and come from the welfare committee if this is what's going to have to take place. It's going to cause more problems, more animals and puppies and kittens with that type of, situation. Okay.
Do we have any kind of rapport with Spay Neuter Kansas City and any kind of an agreement we can enter into with them to help in this type of a situation?
To be fair, I actually don't know if they were aware of this last round. I will see if our finance will specifically reach out to them. We had a list of vets that we asked our finance group to specifically reach out to and make sure that those vets were aware. My only issue, that would actually help a lot of people, of course, no matter what. There are some, of course, who the distance might be an issue for them.
Right.
Because they already have some problems. And so that transportation might be a limiting factor, which is why we really, really want someplace here local that can help support, but we'll at this point take anyone. And of course, we also are more than willing to have contracts with multiple vets. We had contracts with multiple vets before, and we were more than willing. We just had people choose who they wanted to go to. And we essentially had it where it was almost like an insurance company. There was a set price that everybody agreed to. So we weren't paying one vet group more than another. everybody just agreed to one amount, and that was what their voucher was worth. So.
Right.
I have another question that on this animal services sheet also. There's at the very top, you list a number of animals that are under the category of abuse, neglect, or care. And I'm kind of curious right now because of the way our weather is. If there's a dog that's pinned up outside in a doghouse, where temperatures are going to be below freezing for a week at least now, do we have any say on a dog that's in a doghouse in the backyard?
We do. We absolutely do. Our animal services officers are going out essentially nonstop this week on nothing but those calls. And they're essentially abuse, neglect, food, water, shelter calls. And I mean, there are, of course, you can let your dog out to go potty, but, we're getting those calls and making sure it's not for just 15 minutes. If they're left out by themselves, they have to have that proper shelter. And our animal services officers are making sure that shelter, is a proper sized dog house with hay or straw and all of those things. We, of course, are running across a ton who believe that a shed is adequate shelter for an animal, which of course it's not. So yeah, they're running out on a ton of those calls right now. So I'm sure that number would look much higher if you were looking at February numbers right now.
So if it's a dog house and it has straw in it, does that qualify as a good place for that dog?
A lot of that depends on the breed of the animal, the health of the animal. I mean, you're looking at age, you're looking at, is it long-haired, is it short-haired? I mean, my German Shepherd right now loves the cold weather, wants to be out there much longer than I do.
But not overnight.
But no, not overnight. And there's those limitations. And so
I have a specific address in mind. That's why I'm asking this question.
Yeah, well, so send us an email real quick and we'll make sure that we get a case started. I mean, what our code says is it talks about appropriate, food, water, shelter. It talks about all of those things. So some of it, I mean, the animal services officer is going to have a little bit of room to go out there and look and see, like, was this an appropriate amount of time for this animal to be out? Is it appropriate breed? I mean, you're not allowed to just put your Chihuahua outside for an hour. It's just not going to happen.
But you can't leave your Husky out all night either, right?
I would agree with that. There could be a scenario where you have some awesome setup for your Husky, and it may be okay.
Okay.
We'd have to see the setup, and we'd have to see the scenario and the dog.
Okay. I believe animal services have been out and have said that everything is appropriate. I'm still going to send the information to you, though.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
I would appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll give a second set of eyes, and we'll give you feedback.
Thank you so much.
Do you have a bottom line as to how cold a doghouse could stay and still have it be acceptable care? Like the inside of a doghouse. Is there a range in there? You see what I'm asking? Or understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't think any of our officers are out there necessarily with thermometer guns, checking to see what the current temp is inside. So I'm not sure I can give you that exact number. I mean, they're looking at the type of structure it is, how it's been insulated, the animal, and all of those things. I mean, I can tell you if you go to our website right now, the winter, the seasonal pet tips will tell you that if it's below 20 degrees, you shouldn't be just leaving your animal outside.
Well, but I mean, like the inside, but on the inside of a shelter, what would be the coldest that would be acceptable? for
And again,
animals?
our code does not call out a number,
Okay.
so I can't say that there's a clear cut, there is a number.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I guess to change the topic, it looks like your microchip and vaccination clinics for both the cats and the dogs were pretty successful, despite the cold weather.
Yeah, they were both lovely days that they took place. That's how it always is. Whatever day you choose is going to be horrible weather in Missouri. But yeah, they were pretty successful. We're actually looking at, we still have some funds left and some materials left. So we are actually looking at doing possibly another clinic in the next couple of months. We haven't nailed down a date or a location yet. So as soon as we know, we're going to be posting that and blasting it out again. We'll probably be moving to a different part of town to try to, meet the needs of all of our citizens. But yeah, no, it was a success. We had a line of cars that wound its way through the parking lot and down the street, and a lot of people who are more than willing to sit for an hour with their pet in their car for the opportunity. So, I mean, there's a real need, and we recognize that, and we're incredibly thankful to have gotten a grant to help support it, because they're not activities that we normally are able to do. And we were able to partner with a local vet to help us get through all of the vaccinations we needed to get through during that short period of time. I think for the dog one, I'd like to say it was a short period of time, but I think we ended up going over a couple of hours just because there were so many people in line and we didn't want to turn anyone away. So we just kept going until we were done with the line.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
The only thing left on the agenda is other discussion and then adjournment.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I've got a real remedial dumb question, Mr. Chairman. Has there ever been any discussion about any vaccination or pill for animals on the COVID? Has that ever been discussed, or did I miss it?
As far as I'm aware, there has not been.
I mean, on the national level and Johnson & Johnson, has anyone ever heard of anything like that yet?
Well, as far as I'm aware, they're still doing that multi-vaccination for dogs, at least, probably cats as well, but that covers corona. And has for years. Now, I don't know that it's the exact same type of corona.
I don't believe it is, but it's close. I mean, I don't think there's been quite the same level, unless you're a mink in Europe right now, the same level of outbreaks. So since we haven't seen the same spread, I think the focus for most of the pharmaceutical companies has been on the human vaccine and that dose. And of course, they're currently trying to figure out, they're currently doing all the testing they need in order to approve a child dose, or at least an older child vaccine. So I think that is the focus right now.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I'm trying to feed the bluebirds, and the starlings have found the house. What a mess.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn unless there's other discussion.
We've got a motion.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the ayes have it. We're
Thank
gonna
you all.
call this meeting. Thank you, Jack, Linda, Vance,
Thank you, Deb.
Cindy,
Mm-hmm.
and
Thank you.
Deb, everybody else, Christina and Jennifer. So, and
Yep.
Steve. Don't
Deb.
ever forget Steve.
Okay. All right.
All right,
Thanks, Tim.
Everybody be careful.
We are. Thanks.